I know for the sake of the game, we are going up to $40 million.
Up to $40 million.
And not going over it.
No.
I don't know how much money this guy will get.
Right.
But he made $4 million with the Dodgers last year. And I didn't put him on our list. I came up with this while we were doing the show. But you want to talk? You want to add in a backup role, a guy who can play all over the field for you. Kike Hernandez made $4 million with the Dodgers last year. So I don't know how much more he's going to make. And at 33 years old, I assume it'll be something similar to that, right? Maybe a couple more million. So Kike Hernandez is a guy that I feel like could fill that veteran role behind Matt Shaw. He's also a guy that we just haven't talked about, and I just wanted to throw another name out there because we've talked a lot about Moncada. We've talked about Josh Rojas before he signed.
Bregman for like 26, 27 million.
Right. I think Kike Hernandez at least brings really good, veteran experience, World Series winning experience with multiple teams, I believe. I think he won with the Red Sox in 18. And
Moncada cost you a bucket of baseballs.
So, again, when Joey's going to show this graphic, Hernandez won't be on there. Do you want me to do the entire thing? Or
Sure, go ahead. Give me your whole thing.
So we'll go Hernandez, and then I'll go Jack Flaherty. I'll go Kirby Yates, and then, of course, I'm still dreaming about Roki. And Roki, we put $1 million, but essentially that's how much he's going to make in year one. I think I'm going over 40 by like $1 or $2 million. But I don't know where the actual line is. It's somewhere between 40 and 50 million for the Cubs. So it's realistic in a way. To me, I said this when we talked about Flaherty. To me, the best case scenario, or I think the way that really puts them ahead of everyone in division is if they get Roki and still add another starting pitcher after that. Because I think their depth would be great. And I don't know how many innings Roki will pitch in year one.
So in addition to your list is Flaherty, Yates, Roki, and Kike?
And Kike Hernandez, yeah.
Okay. I will say this. That's a great list. If they get that, I will fall over, right? I will be beyond ecstatic if they can get how you're spending it. I don't know that.
I think doesn't it just go over a little bit of 40?
Sure.
It's not
No.
outlandish.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying it's very hopeful, right?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who has Roki on the list is very hopeful,
right.
very
and Flaherty, because Flaherty, all of those guys are very hopeful. If they can pull off with $40 million your list,
yeah,
Jed Hoyer will have had himself an offseason. If he will have added those guys plus Kyle Tucker,
yeah, again, the money
and a backup catcher.
I don't know if we said this, but the money is projected from MLB trade rumors,
right? Just so, and those were numbers that they were putting out,
right?
So sort of at the beginning of free agency, they've been pretty close on some of them.
For the exercise, that's how we went off. I mean, Flaherty was 22, 23 million AAV, and Kirby Yates was 1 year 14, or not 1 year, but 14 million, yeah. So.
Marzik says, I don't know if I trust Flaherty. That's something we've talked about. He had a 2023 Bellinger year.
I get that.
Boyd's had a lot of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
You've already added Boyd, who's coming off an injury. You got a lot of other young pitchers you're counting on that had injuries. The problem is all the pitchers have injuries.
Yeah, except Luis Castillo. He's definitely been healthy, but I also think his under-the-hood numbers are concerning.
Well, and you'd also inherit an AAV of $24 million for multiple seasons moving forward.
But again, we're talking
not worst case scenario. That's for sure.
For the exercise, we're going up to $40 million, but it's somewhere between $40 and $50 million here. So let's just act as if
40
Kike's
should be low, but that should be the low number of what they're spending now. I like your list. I'd be thrilled if they got Flaherty. I really would. I know it's a gamble, but I went a different way with my list. I went stir the pot a little more.
You stir the pot?
I went a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I went a little Mark Carmen on this one. I went a little out there.
Yeah. I'm
was
just
like,
glad
you know
it's
what?
different. That's what
I
I'll
was
say.
like, Flaherty, $23 million. It's a roll of the dice because of his health. If I can get the key to this, the linchpin of this whole thing is if I can get Roki at like $1 million and solidify my staff with Roki, even though we don't know how it's going to translate year one and he's young and he's a project, he's not necessarily a finished product, yada, yada. If you can get Roki for $1 million, then I don't have to have Flaherty as my other pitcher, right? Like, first of all, I think we're dreaming on either way.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm willing to roll the dice on $16 million for Max Scherzer for 1 year if I got Roki in my back pocket.
What if you didn't get Roki?
Number one, here's a guy I'm putting on my team that Roki and some of the young pitchers can look at and say, that guy did it and he worked hard. I don't think anybody would argue that about Max Scherzer. Is he washed up? Maybe. Very possibly. But at $16 million, it's like the $16 million you spent on Kyle Hendricks last year. I would say the upside on Scherzer this year, for me, is higher than what the Angels are getting for Kyle Hendricks, even though I love Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah.
$16 million, roll the dice. If I've got Roki as my backup plan and Ben Brown, Javier Assad, and some of the young Cade Horton and some of those options, I'm willing to take that 1 year, $16 million roll of the dice just for the sake of argument. Now, you got to address the bullpen. You got to. So I did.
Finnegan?
I loved the idea of Finnegan, and I think Finnegan, I think all the names we have on both of our lists, I'm interested in. I think I went Tanner Scott, right? Who else did I have on my list, Joey? I think I've addressed everything. I got Finnegan at 3. Yep. I got Tanner Scott. So I've addressed the bullpen. I still believe in Porter Hodge. I kind of think Ben Brown might be a star in the making, waiting to happen in the bullpen if he's healthy. They tell us he's healthy.
Yeah.
And I think I've made the starting rotation much stronger by having the guys that I have and adding to it Scherzer and Roki.
Yeah.
I've also left myself like roughly $6-7 million to play with during the season. So if the Scherzer thing falls flat, and I know it's fallen flat, I can move somebody that's got money on the contract and try and go get myself somebody. I can, because in this case, I haven't done the trade yet with the prospects. Now, if I were to flip that list and say, you know what, that's a ridiculous list, which it might be.
Unfortunately, I feel like your list is more realistic than mine.
Well, I like I said, if yours happens, Jed Hoyer has had an A+ offseason, even without talking to Juan Soto. If he can get that done, I will look at it and say, Jed got some good work done this offseason. They're a better team than they were last year. Now, there's other guys you could think about, right? You had Yates. Carlos Estevez, would you spend $9 million on him? As
he's certainly an upgrade than what they have.
He would be.
Yeah.
Now, does he fall in that mid-level that people are talking about? I think it's okay to have some of those mid-level guys as long as you're shooting for the stars with, in my case, it's Roki and Scherzer and yada, yada, and Tanner Scott. Now, neither one of us did the trade route. So if we have that, because we didn't say that's what we were going to do for this, but the most realistic spending of the $40 million isn't necessarily all in free agents. The most realistic route for this, for the Cubs, is not your way or my way. It's taking some prospects and inheriting some AAV from a player like a Luis Castillo. Now, do you want to spend $24 million of your $40 million plus prospect capital to have Castillo be? And the way I took it here now, and I'm looking at it afterwards, and I'm saying either way, whether it's my crazy way of Scherzer and Roki or your way of Roki and Flaherty, I think I'd rather spend the money that way, even though they might be a bigger roll of the dice.
Well, I
and
feel
less
like,
certainty.
I feel like at this point, Luis Castillo is more of a dream than it was a month ago. There's, I'm curious about Pablo Lopez still. I think he's definitely a little bit cheaper and younger. That's something that
Castillo and Lopez are probably more likely than our list.
Yeah.
Probably.
I honestly, I feel like Flaherty is more likely than Luis Castillo at this point. But, I don't know. I'm not at the offices at 1060 West Addison. What do I know? Do you
want them to take that? I'm curious what Joey thinks too. Like, would you guys rather have them take that prospect capital that they have, whoever it might be? Maybe it's Owen Casey, maybe it's Triantos, maybe it's a combination. Would you rather have them trade those guys now to go get whatever player A might be that would help the team now? Let's say it's involved in a Castillo deal. Or would you rather hang on to those guys for now, go with one of our two lists, and say, we've got money that we held over from that list, and we still have those prospects that will help us get the deal done. Would you rather do it at the trade deadline? Is it going to cost you more at the trade deadline to get a guy that you know is having a good season?
Yeah. I think it.
But you're also rolling the dice on this.
I think it depends. Obviously, depends on who the player is.
Mm-hmm.
I am also concerned in this route about, is it just a rental? And I at this point, I would not be sending a ton of those prospects, and I don't think Jed Hoyer would do this either, unless the stars align, Luke, and this team is pushing 100 wins, exceeding projections at even a 2016 level. That's the only way that I would see Jed Hoyer do something like that in terms of sending prospects for a rental. But also at the deadline now, like that doesn't happen very often anymore. Like at least for like a major player,
mm-hmm.
Like they're not going to be trading for Vlad Jr. at the trade deadline, and sending massive prospect.
I just don't think those deals very often lead to that team winning the World Series.
We all silly like the mayor.